So you'll notice that this is from the book of the prophet Jeremiah. In fact, this whole section that we're going, it's short, isn't it, is often considered Jeremiah's spiritual testament. The days are coming, says the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. So this is the northern kingdom. This is the southern kingdom. Notice I highlighted new covenant because this is the only time in the whole Old Testament that the word new is used in connection with the word covenant. We've talked before about how many covenants are recognized in the Old Testament. You know, the covenant with Noah, the covenant with Moses, right? Lots of different covenants. But this is the only time that a new covenant is spoken about. It will not be like the covenant I made with their fathers the day I took them by the hand to lead them forth from the land of Egypt. So that's the Mosaic covenant, right? For they broke my covenant, and I had to show myself their master, says the Lord. But this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Lord. So I highlighted after those days because they have an eschatological tone. By that I mean this, the very few verses that remain will explicate what new covenant is intended in Jeremiah's words. So what you need, what this prepares you for, this little prepositional phrase right here, is the intervention of God into the history of the Hebrew nation. So that's why I'm saying there's an eschatological tone to it. Something will shift when God is more directly involved in their, first of all, wandering around, right? And then once they get settled in the promised land. I will place my law within them and write it upon their hearts. And right there, this part of the sentence, right here, write it upon their hearts. This is the reason it is called a new covenant. Because you see, it's going to be a new way of being faithful through an interiorization of what the belonging means. So interior values will be more important, like not just blind obedience to external laws, which are only the outward way to look upon what needs to be protected, which is the belonging to God. It's something to love, not something to disdain. So this is going to be not just obedience, but love and a new knowledge of God, an intimate knowledge of God. All of those things, the love, the obedience, and the new knowledge of God, all of that being gifts from God to the Hebrew nation. And that's what's going to make it new. I will write it upon their hearts. So this means the primacy of the interior values will be the utmost important way to know the immediacy of God in their lives. And while law will always remain important, indeed was important to Jesus, because it gives them identity as well as context, they cannot follow it externally without ever having their hearts redeemed by it. And that's what was happening. They were following it externally, but in their hearts, there wasn't any transformation. And that was the whole purpose of the law. Because the next sentence, which I probably should have highlighted, was totally forgotten. This is the reason for the law in the first place. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. You see what's being talked about there is a mutuality. It's hugely important. Imagine a mutuality with the divine. No longer will they have need to teach their friends and relatives how to know the Lord. And this I underlined, no longer will they have need to teach, because God's going to mediate directly. And this word that I highlighted, know, You need to think it's not an intellectual exercise. It is a life attitude. It's the practical recognition of God in all of their lives, like Joseph did. Joseph was a man who knew the Lord because in very practical ways, Joseph recognized the actions, in all of his actions and situations, he recognized the presence of God in an intimate way involved in his life, the life of his family. That's what knowing the Lord means. Every action and every situation recognizes the influx of God as presence to them. All, please note, all. This is going to get reflected in the gospel. All, from least to greatest, shall know me, says the Lord. In other words, it doesn't just belong to a certain number of people who are of a certain class or of a certain amount of education or something like that. It's not that. All, from least to greatest. That's why this prepositional phrase right here that's set in apposition with these two commas, this is really important because not only is it's kind of flipped to say, oh, this is how specific it is. From the least to the greatest, all shall know me, says the Lord, for I will forgive their evil doing and remember their sin no more. They won't be held in it. They're going to be invited and moved forward by means of this new understanding of covenant. It's beautiful and strong. And when you think all of that comes from this little short pericope, I hope that you can receive that in the spirit that I just offered it.